the anointed ones. The moment a group unites against one person, they have unknowingly declared that person greater than them all. Think about that for a second. In history, the moment a group unites against one person, they have unknowingly declared that person greater than them all. Think about that for a second. In history, the most devastating downfalls didn't come from outsiders. They came from groups who thought they could suffocate the light of one individual. From ancient courts to modern boardrooms, jealous cliques have always tried the same tired trick: surround, slander, and sabotage. But here's the thing. They always forget that the very act of targeting someone only makes that person stand out more. And let's be honest, what kind of group project is it when the assignment is take down one person? That's not strategy, that's insecurity doing group therapy with one person. That's not strategy, that's insecurity doing group therapy without a licensed professional. They thought teaming up made them powerful, but really it just exposed how powerless they felt in the presence of your authenticity. Research in psychology even shows that envy is contagious. When one person feels it, it spreads like wildfire through a group. That's why jealous circles form, not because you're weak, but because your presence forces people to confront their own lack. You didn't do anything wrong. You simply existed too boldly for people who survive on pretense. So buckle up, because this isn't just about petty jealousy. This is about how a group that thought they could bury you is now being buried by their own schemes. They've never run across a person like you before, and the shockwave of their downfall will prove it. Number 1. You were never in their category to begin with. They thought you were just another person they could size up, pull apart, and compete with. That was their first and biggest mistake. You were never in their category to begin with. They were looking at you through the same lens they use on each other: status, numbers, appearance, money, and surface-level recognition. But none of those things ever defined you, which is why their calculations kept failing. They kept trying to box you in with labels that simply don't apply. The truth is, people get jealous when they believe someone has taken something they wanted for themselves. But here's where it gets deeper. You never even wanted what they were fighting over. You weren't chasing their approval, their spotlight, or their version of success. You were walking a path that didn't require their stage or their permission. That's why their obsession with you looks ridiculous, because they are competing for a prize you were never even running after. What unnerved them most is that your identity wasn't fragile like theirs. They are constantly seeking validation to prove they belong, but your confidence comes from somewhere they can't touch. It's not built on applause, connections, or the shifting rules of popularity. It's rooted in something they can't fabricate. And when someone stands in that kind of wholeness, it terrifies insecure people. You weren't supposed to survive without their approval, and you weren't supposed to rise without their help. Yet here you are, living proof that they overestimated their power. That's why nothing they tried worked. They wanted you to crumble under rejection, but you stood taller. They expected you to beg for entry, but you created your own lane. They thought isolating you would weaken you, but it only revealed how unnecessary they really are to your growth. And the longer they watched, the more uncomfortable it became. Deep down, they knew you weren't competing with them. You were exposing that there was never any competition at all. This is why their jealousy grew so toxic. You reminded them that they are replaceable in a world where they thought they were irreplaceable. And you reminded them that someone can walk into a room and shift everything without even playing the same game. They've never run across a person like you before because people like you don't fit into categories. They redefine them. Number 2, their attack was actually a confession. When a group decides to gang up on one person, that act alone is already a confession. It's them saying without words, "We can't take you on individually, so we need backup." Jealousy doesn't unite people unless the person they're targeting carries something too heavy for one person to handle. Their attack against you was proof that you had something bigger, brighter, and stronger than all of them combined. They would never admit it out loud, but their behavior exposed it. Think about it. If you were ordinary, they wouldn't have wasted their time. Ordinary doesn't demand a strategy. Ordinary doesn't cause sleepless nights, whispered meetings, and coordinated plans. Ordinary doesn't pull people together to fight it. They only formed that alliance against you because, whether they liked it or not, you disrupted their sense of control. You became the mirror they didn't want to look into, the reminder that, no matter how loud they are, their noise still doesn't measure up to real presence. What makes this even more revealing is how they had to validate each other in the process. They couldn't stand firm on their own, so they leaned on each other's bitterness to make their envy feel justified. Every lie, every rumor, every plot was a desperate way of saying, "We're scared of what this person represents and we can't face it alone." They thought they were attacking you, but in reality they were exposing themselves. And here's where it gets almost ironic. The more they tried to tear you down, the clearer the confession became. It was written in their actions. Your existence unsettled them. Your resilience reminded them of their fragility. Your growth made them realize how stagnant they really were. Their jealousy wasn't about you taking anything from them. It was about you proving what they never had in the first place. So while they thought they were diminishing you, they were actually broadcasting your significance. They put a spotlight on you by the very way they treated you. People watching could see it too, because when a group obsesses over one person, the question becomes, what makes that person so powerful that they need all this energy to bring them down? And that's the confession they'll never escape. Their attack was really their admission that they could never stand next to you without numbers. Number 3, they didn't plan for your endurance. Jealousy always underestimates endurance. That's why they came at you with such confidence, convinced their schemes would knock you off balance quickly. They believed you would react the way they would if the tables were turned. fold under pressure, lash out in desperation, or retreat into silence. But that's where they miscalculated. They assumed you were fueled by the same shallow strength they live by, forgetting that what carries you isn't man-made. They didn't plan for the fact that you were reinforced by something much bigger than yourself. The truth is, people who act out of envy rarely think long-term. They move on impulse, driven by the adrenaline of trying to get a quick win. They don't stop to consider how deep your roots go, or how much you've already survived, before they even stepped into the picture. That's why they threw everything at you all at once, expecting you to collapse under the weight of their attacks. What they didn't realize is that you were already built to outlast storms far heavier than their plots. You had been tested long before their jealousy showed up, and endurance was already in your DNA. This is why their frustration kept growing. Every time they thought, this should have been enough to break them, you kept standing. Every time they whispered, surely this will silence them, you kept speaking. Every time they predicted, this will destroy their name, you walked out with even more credibility. Your survival was their biggest shock, because it forced them to admit that the tools they use to break others don't work on you, and nothing threatens jealous people more than realizing their usual methods fall flat. Their mistake was believing resilience is something you can fake or borrow. It's not. Endurance can't be copied, and it can't be stolen. It comes from battles fought in silence, scars earned in private, and strength refined when nobody was watching. They didn't know your story. They only knew their jealousy. And because of that ignorance, they launched attacks they had no power to finish. So now they sit in disbelief, watching the same person they expected to crumble keep rising in plain sight. Their schemes didn't break you. They revealed the unshakable foundation underneath you, and that endurance is exactly what guarantees their downfall, because they will run out of attacks long before you run out of strength. Number 4. Their unity was built on hatred, not strength. They may have appeared unstoppable as a group, like a wall no one could penetrate, but the truth is their unity was nothing more than a fragile illusion. What held them together wasn't loyalty, respect, or genuine strategy, it was hatred. Every conversation, every plan, every whispered agreement was fueled by envy and projection, not real strength. They depended on shared bitterness to maintain the facade of power. And that kind of bond is always unstable because it's reactive, not constructive. The problem with hatred as glue is that it can't withstand pressure. It's volatile, unpredictable, and corrosive. Every argument, every clash of egos, every moment of insecurity slowly eats away at the foundation. Unlike true alliances built on trust and purpose, theirs only survived as long as the target remained under threat. The moment their focus shifted, or the target grew beyond their reach, the cracks appeared. Their energy was entirely consumed by obsession. They weren't working toward creation or growth. They were consuming themselves in the attempt to destroy. Hatred demanded constant reinforcement, which meant they had to keep plotting, keep whispering, keep coordinating, just to maintain the illusion of unity. It was exhausting and unsustainable, and deep down, they knew it. That's why jealousy-driven groups always implode from the inside out. They can never build something lasting because nothing real connects them. And as they fell apart, every failure became a testament to the fragility of what they thought was strength. The louder they tried to appear, the more obvious it became that their power was hollow. Their collective presence was only ever threatening on the surface. Beneath it, the instability of hatred made them easy to predict, easy to outlast, and easy to expose. In the end, the very thing they relied on to feel powerful, their shared animosity toward you, was what guaranteed their undoing. Hatred can motivate, but it cannot create. It can bind temporarily, but it cannot sustain. Their downfall was inevitable because the structure they built had no real foundation. And when structures are built on envy instead of integrity, collapse is not a matter of if, but when. Number 5. Your existence exposed their dependency. Without you, their entire world would have felt empty. Every word they spoke, every plan they hatched, every ounce of energy they wasted was directed at you. They didn't realize it, but by focusing so intently on bringing you down, they revealed the truth. Their sense of significance depended entirely on your presence. They needed someone to compare themselves to, someone to criticize, someone to obsess over, and you filled that role perfectly, unwillingly but undeniably. They believed targeting you gave them control, but in reality it showed how powerless they were without a point of focus. Their identity became tangled with yours. Every insult, rumor, and scheme wasn't about improving themselves. It was about trying to steal a measure of the power they saw in you. They orbited your life like planets around a sun they could never touch, thinking proximity equaled influence. But in doing so, they surrendered their own autonomy. And the irony is that the more they tried to diminish you, the more they revealed their own dependence. Their obsession became the very evidence of their weakness. People outside that circle could see it. Their conversations, their actions, and their entire energy were fueled by one thing: you. They invested in drama, schemes, and manipulation, but the investment was never theirs to claim. It was borrowed from the attention you unknowingly demanded, and the more they tried, the deeper they sank into a cycle they could not escape, because the system they created to empower themselves only highlighted how powerless they truly were. Meanwhile, you moved through life building your own foundation, independent of their chaos. Your choices, your growth, your victories did not require their acknowledgement. You existed beyond their calculations, and that independence exposed their vulnerability. Their dependency wasn't just a weakness, it was a trap. And when someone's life is spent orbiting another, the moment they lose that gravitational pull is when collapse is inevitable. You became the center they never deserved, and in trying to take you down, they gave away the very power they were desperate to hold. Their focus on you didn't elevate them, it revealed them. Every scheme, every whisper, every jealous act was a marker of their own instability. And because you never needed them to define yourself, their obsession ensured their undoing, while proving, without a doubt, that their world revolved around someone they could never truly contain.
Struggling to get started on your book? Meet Swibbler,